Good afternoon, so let's begin. Can you tell us who you are?
My name is Michael Cremo. I'm the author of the book Forbidden Archaeology.
Which I have to say is a personal favourite of mine. I've read cover to cover several times, and so it's a personal great honour to sit down and have a chance to talk to you. How did it come about? What led you into Forbidden Archaeology?
Well, that has to do a lot with the way I was raised. My father was an intelligence officer in the United States Air Force. So that meant a couple of things for me as I was growing up. First of all, it meant I was moving from place to place within the United States and in different countries. And that had the effect of opening my eyes to the reality that there's more than one way of looking at things. The American way is one way, but there are other people with other ways of looking at things. I got exposed to a lot of different cultures as I was growing up. When I was a teenager, I was living in Europe. Once I went to Stockholm on a vacation. I was staying in a youth hostel there, and I met some young people who'd gone overland to India and back, and they were telling me some pretty interesting things about India, so I decided I'd like to do that as well. And gradually I became interested in studying the ancient Sanskrit writings of India. And in those writings I encountered descriptions of human populations existing on Earth millions of years ago. That was something completely different than I'd ever heard from my teachers in high school and university.
Mm-hmm.
So I began to wonder about these statements in these ancient writings, not just the ancient Sanskrit writings of India, but many different ancient wisdom traditions speak of humans existing a long time ago, much further back in time than current theories would allow.
Mm.
I wondered, are those statements just mythological inventions, or is there perhaps some factual basis for them in science? That's what got me looking into the whole history of archaeology. Of course, when I looked in the current textbooks of archaeology, I didn't see any evidence for extreme human antiquity. I only saw evidence that supported the current theories, namely that humans like us first came into existence less than 200,000 years ago, having evolved from more primitive ape-like human ancestors. But I decided to look beyond the textbooks. I wanted to look at the original scientific reports published in the professional scientific literature. When I started doing that, I began finding many reports of archaeologists finding human bones, human artifacts, human footprints, many millions of years old, much older than the 200,000 years that most scientists now accept for a modern human presence
Absolutely, yeah.
on Earth. So that's what got me looking into this whole topic. So I collected those reports and put them in the book Forbidden Archaeology, and since then I've been pursuing that line of research.
And what would you say is the first anomalous artifact that you encountered personally that really started to cement the theory into something really quite tangible?
Well, I had a suspicion, that such evidence was there. I just thought it might be there. So I had a research assistant, and I asked him to start looking into textbooks of archaeology from the 19th century, not the current textbooks.
Mm.
And I was right. When you go back to those older books, they mention some unusual discoveries that are no longer mentioned in the textbooks today. I think the first one that really caught my attention was the California gold mine discoveries. In the 19th century, gold was discovered in California. Miners went there to get it. They dug tunnels into the sides of mountains. And deep inside those tunnels in the solid rock, the miners were finding human bones and human artifacts, not at just one location, but many different locations in the gold mining region. And these human bones and human artifacts were found in layers of rock that modern geologists tell us are about 50 million years old. So the state geologist of California, Dr. J.D. Whitney, collected all these discoveries and wrote a report about them that was published by Harvard University in the year 1880. And we don't see these things mentioned in the textbooks today, but they were very serious discoveries made by a professional scientist, reported in a scientific publication. And I studied his publication very carefully, and I would notice here and there he would mention in footnotes, and objects of similar age were found in Europe by Dr. Carlos Ribeiro in Portugal. So then I would track down Dr. Ribeiro's report. And these things are not mentioned in the textbooks today. You have to go through quite a bit of research to track these things down.
And how easy did you find it to actually find them?
Well, I had a research assistant who's very good at tracking things down. A lot of this stuff isn't available on the web. Certainly when I started this research in 1984, a lot of this stuff there wasn't even a World Wide Web at that point.
Quite.
And even today, much of this stuff, it's only accessible by tracking it down through libraries, getting things, getting out-of-print documents from archives and things like that. So I tracked down Ribeiro's reports, and he had discovered human artifacts 20 million years old in Portugal and published them in the scientific literature. Of course, it was in Portuguese. Now, because of my educational background, I have a reading knowledge of most of the major European languages.
Wow.
So I'm able to read archaeological reports in Portuguese, French, German, Italian, and so on. So I tracked down his reports, and then in little footnotes he would mention, and this researcher in France, the Abbé Bourgeois, he made discoveries in Miocene formations 20 million years old in France. So then I would go and track those down in the French, and that would lead me to other discoveries. At first, I thought I was going to do about 8 weeks of research, maybe write a short little pamphlet, and then go on to some other topic. But one discovery kept leading to another, so the 8 weeks turned into 8 months, and the 8 months turned into 8 years. By the time I'd done 8 years of research, I think I had pretty much covered the field, in a general way at least. And it was at that time that I put out, the book Forbidden Archaeology, which was a